Growing up, my older brother Dustin and I were best friends. I love my brother. We did and got into everything together. My mom must have chased us 100 miles through that house.
I remember this time once that Nate was, and just looking at these pictures, Nate was such the little mischievous instigator, and Dustin was always a very, very sweet-spirited little boy. I remember one time I heard this, "Mom, Mom," only to find that Nate had coaxed Dustin into this box and then sat on top of him. And it was just the funniest thing. Dustin would let Nathan do anything he wanted to. There was always just something going on between them.
One day, Dustin and I were in the car with my aunt. We were backing out of a driveway and she asked me if anybody was coming down the road. I said, "I can't see anything." She waited for a moment and started backing out, and that's when it happened.
I'll never forget that day. It really changed our lives forever.
I remember the impact as we pulled out of the driveway. The impact came on the passenger side, and it kind of threw us into the front yard of the house we were at. And as the car settled, the first thing I did, I just kind of looked at myself, and just through tears, I remember being so scared and afraid, and just seeing red from a cut I had received on my forehead. And then I looked to my brother Dustin, who was in the passenger side, and I just saw the car just crushed in, all the way in, and his body just lay motionless. You know, I didn't know it at the time, but my mom later told me in the hospital that Dustin had died upon impact. And the last thing I did, I remember I was looking at my Aunt Roxanne, and she just kind of lay on the steering wheel. And the last words that she said to me were, "Don't worry, Nathan, everything's gonna be okay."
I remember getting a phone call that there was a really bad accident, and I had rushed to the hospital. I was just screaming, wanting to know what had happened, and Nate's dad had come over to me and just basically got a hold of my shoulders and said that there had been a bad accident and that Dustin was dead, and that Nate was critically injured.
You know, growing up as a kid, I would find myself crying a lot just because I missed my brother. You know, I had a lot of questions. I didn't understand why I was the only one that survived the accident, and I definitely did not understand why Dustin had to die. I found so much identity in the tragedy of my life. It was the first thing I'd tell people, that I was this kid who survived this horrible accident. The scar on my forehead, I loved sharing the story. It was who I was. I was that kid who survived. It wasn't until after high school that I came to know the Lord. And I can tell you the distinct moment when I made the decision to say, my identity is not in death, that my identity is alive in Christ.
I realized that there was only one thing that I wanted to do, and that was to make sure that I was going to go to heaven and to see my son again. When I found out that I just needed to put all my faith in Jesus, I did that, and I now live a life of passion and purpose, and life is just truly meant to be lived.
You know, I love the book of Galatians because it reminds me that I'm alive because Christ is alive. When I made the decision to find my identity in Him, everything changed. I now know the calling on my life is to lead people into God's kingdom. I know the calling on my life as a husband, and I know the calling on my life as a father. This is my son, Nathaniel Dustin Davis. You know, my family has chosen not to focus on the death of that time, but we have chosen to focus on the life that Dustin had. We choose to believe that whatever Satan intends for evil, that God will turn it for good. And we have chosen to believe in the hope of glory.